Hello everyone, my name is Yuna. This is the chapter that Fern saves a pig and names him Wilbur. Fern has an old bib and a bottle for him. I think she was being very brave to save Wilbur's life. It was a happy life until one day Wilbur had to go to Uncle Homer's farm. I think I understand, Mr. Arable, because you can't raise a pig in your house. Fern came almost every day to visit Wilbur. She sat on a milk stool, and in this chapter, he tried to escape from the barn, but sadly he went back in. Wilbur was planning to do a lot of fun things, but it was all ruined because of the rain. He wanted to play, but there were no friends to play with. This is the chapter when Wilbur meets Charlotte. Wilbur doesn't like Charlotte that much than he expected. This is because she drinks other insects' blood. The goose egg hatched, and there are 7 eggs, but the last one won't hatch, so they give it to Templeton the rat. This chapter, the old sheep said, "People will kill Wilbur on Christmas." Then Wilbur screams and runs around in panic. I think Wilbur doesn't need to be killed, but the sadder thing is that pork is delicious. Fern tells Mrs. Arable about the farm. Like Templeton is a rat, and Charlotte is a big gray spider, and goslings have hatched in Uncle Homer's farm. However, Mrs. Arable worried about Fern that she talks to animals. I wish Mrs. Arable doesn't worry. This chapter, Wilbur tried to spin a web, but he fails to do it, and Wilbur agrees that he was just trying to show off. Also, Wilbur found out that Mr. Arable will try to kill him on Christmas. Avery, Fern's brother, tries to capture Charlotte, thinking that she's a normal spider, but suddenly the rotten goose egg cracked and the smell was really bad, so Avery ran away. This chapter, People and Lurvy discover Charlotte's web. In the web, there were 2 words saying, "Some pig." And all of the people came and saw Wilbur, some pig. In chapter 12, the animals have a meeting. They choose a word to write on the web, and the word is terrific. While the animals were sleeping, Charlotte made her web spelled terrific. I really want to know how to spin a web. The next morning, Mr. Zuckerman found out about the web, and he was very surprised. Next, Mrs. Arable went to see the doctor. She was worried Fern had a virus of nonsense. I wish she wouldn't worry about Fern. This chapter, the people came and saw Wilbur, and Charlotte talks to Wilbur that she couldn't go to the fair, but she was able to come to the fair. Mrs. Zuckerman took Wilbur to have a buttermilk bath. Wilbur liked it because it was yummy and made him clean. Also, Charlotte and Templeton could come to the fair. This chapter, everyone went to the fair. Avery and Fern got some money to ride the merry-go-round. Also, Charlotte and Wilbur met a huge pig named Uncle. Templeton gets a paper for Charlotte, and it says humble. It is almost the first time Charlotte leaving her web. This chapter was very sad to Wilbur because when he talked to Charlotte and said that he thought Charlotte was evil and bloodthirsty, and Charlotte died. Charlotte's babies came out of the eggs. They made balloons and floated away, but thankfully 3 spiders decided to stay in the barn with Wilbur. My art project. My art project is made of some clay, a fuzzy pipe, and some paper. The scene is when Fern is sitting on her milk stool and watching Wilbur and Charlotte. I choose this part because some pig is the longest word of the words that Charlotte wrote in her web, and one of Charlotte's best parts is her speaking skills. So if I make her talk, then it will be more fun. I like my art project because I used a lot of materials. Thank you for listening.